in today's environment, it's not a choice to change prices or not change prices. Like you're going to have to change prices. Do you want to be smart about it and test and get more data, or do you want to like roll it out and cross your fingers?
Hello, folks. Boy, do we got a screamer for you today. So not only do I have one guest, I have two guests, Adam Kitan and Drew Marconi of intelligems. These guys are the tester of testers. They will figure out how to make you more money by figuring out how much you should charge, testing shipping thresholds, all the awesomeness. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rava. Awesome to be here.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks for having us.
It's going to be a blast because this is going to be the first. You guys are the number, in the vein of testing, you're the number one time that we've ever done a double pod. So this is going to be really interesting. So I am in Austin as always. We'll go first, Drew, and then you to Adam. Where are you guys taking this podcast right now?
I'm in New York, actually in Long Island City at a WeWork.
Oh, cool. What about you, Adam? Oh, cool.
And I'm in Denver, Colorado.
And you guys are you're based out of New York though, right?
No,
we're kind of split.
I like it. How many people are on your team right now?
We are about to be a team of 9. So like 2/3 engineering, product design, and then a third kind of like analytics ops generalists. So we were just 2 of us up to like Thanksgiving last year. So it's been a fun 2022.
That's awesome. Well, I guess first, let me go to you, Drew, and then I'll go to you, Adam. Drew, give us kind of the pitch on intelligems. How did you guys why did you start it? Tell us a little bit about that so people that don't know kind of can get a little background.
Yeah. So Adam and I have worked together for like 5 years, and that was like the most natural piece was, hey, we want to keep working together. Let's go start something. Our last job was building dynamic pricing systems for a ride-sharing company here in New York. So everything from how do we write a surge algorithm? How do we like manage subscriptions or, find the best ROI discounts because it's a super competitive pricing market.
Yep.
So we knew we wanted to kind of stick with that, take that expertise. We're trying to figure out where to put it. And we had some friends running stores on Shopify and we're like, how do you price? And I got like the finger in the air motion every single time I asked that question. And we were like, well, that's interesting. Like, let's dig in here. So we just have kind of been pulling at that thread for the last 18 months now of, hey, like how do we help e-com store owners make more data-driven decisions around pricing, give them more information about that because like it is a huge driver to then go make more profit. And we think like really undervalued in the market.
Yeah.
I love that. What's your take there, Adam? What made you so excited to start this and be involved with this?
I mean, I think that there's like an interesting intersection here of the economics of how the business works and then also some cool technologies of how we can A/B test and use something that's like newly digital, which is your brand is entirely online and we have great tracking and great attribution. And how can we merge all of that together and to figure out what actually is the right price. When you have a brick and mortar store, you can't be swapping out price tags on people. And so this is kind of a new capability and it was kind of an interesting intersection of a lot of different cool ideas. And so I think that it's not a new concept. People have been doing dynamic pricing in like airlines and hotels and ride sharing even for almost a decade. But for e-commerce, I think it's kind of uncharted waters.
So I'm going to start with you, Drew, and then I'll go to you, Adam. Drew, I mean, this is some pretty high level technical stuff. So I went to school and studied economics, and this is, almost master's degrees type of stuff, economics. This really isn't your cookie cutter economics. How did you guys build the skill set or mastery around kind of, elasticity, pricing, ROI in terms of bands? I mean, again, this isn't really like economics 101. This is kind of the advanced course, and kind of give me that background there.
Yeah, this was like, I hated my intermediate micro course in college. So it was not because of my academic background. We knew elasticity, but it was kind of first principles. Like, okay, we have to go figure out how to price. we want to run a successful business. What are like the things we need to know? And kind of gradually, I mean, we knew concepts like elasticity, but like figuring out what levers we had to pull was always our driving thing. Like, okay, we got to improve our unit economics and our margins. Where can we go do that with the least impact on growth? All right, let's try an experiment. Like in these segments or these products, where can we raise price that's going to raise our margin without harming conversion rate as much? And then similarly, like on the discount side, we got to drive revenue. We want to get new user growth. Well, like we want to get new users who help us grow sustainably. How do we find out which ones of those are profitable? How do we find out like if $10 off or 10% off is a better ROI offer? So like for us, experimentation was always the just like simplest way to do it. We were really familiar with it. And we could go just get data, throw it in spreadsheets, understand like case A versus case B versus case C. And that was just the easiest way for us to try to understand it instead of trying to build some like huge machine learning model that tried to solve everything all at once.
Yeah, I love that. And then Adam, what was your background? How did you kind of fall into the economics portion of it?
I mean, I've always gone back and forth between sort of like a more business data science kind of consulting background and an engineering. And so at VIA, I did a lot of both. I worked in our engineering team for some time. I worked in our operations team for some time. And where we landed and where Drew and I got to spend a lot of time working together was on building pricing algorithms. And so again, that was like very weedsy and technical. And it also had to run in 100 milliseconds or less to determine the price for a ride. But at the same time, there was a lot of macro factors behind it and strategic thinking and some of the finance things. So we definitely had to just sort of figure stuff out at VIA and learn a lot about what are the economic drivers behind this and how we can then take those economic factors, put them into code and make it actually run and run fast. And so I think that was just a really fun experience and we were excited to keep doing that.
Yeah. And
I love that.
And like what was cool was Adam was living in Tel Aviv at the time. I was living in New York where the product was live and we could go like, I would step outside and it would be pouring and it would be 10 minutes to get a ride. And I'd say, hey, like this feels really cheap right now. Like we should experiment with charging more depending on weather. And like our just experience as riders and our own willingness to pay, then we could go like build a feature and see if that correlated with willingness to pay, which that like feedback loop was really fun to get out there and like just see actually what worked.
That is so fascinating. Yeah. So actually here in Austin, the capitalist in me loves it. The pocket doesn't, but we have parking meters and the parking meter is actually demand based. And so all of them are hooked up. And so as the system gets more packed, it's not like egregious. It's not like, $10, $20. It's $1 here, $1 there kind of thing. But I was like, that's kind of cool. It is interesting when you get into trying to find that equilibrium in terms of what the market will bear, but no more. And, everybody's kind of winning because for better or worse, I mean, there's definitely some weird spots where capitalism can be kind of awkward to apply, but for better or worse, like price is the best proxy for demand, right? Like if you want something, you're going to be able to pay, you're going to be willing to pay the most for it. And so that's so interesting. Okay, actually, I'm going to pivot first to you, Adam, and then you, Drew. What's the best and worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I ever received is, wow, this is an on the spot question. I would say the best piece of advice I ever received was like believe in yourself and go for it. Like especially when we were thinking about trying to start this company, there were lots of questions and doubts and it was scary, to be honest. And I think that a lot of people believed in me and encouraged me to believe in myself. So I think that was, otherwise we wouldn't be here today and this has been fun. So that was good advice. Bad advice was sell Bitcoin at $1,000.
Zing. That's amazing. Okay, I'll go to you, Drew, now. What's the best and worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I'm glad I had a minute to think. The best advice, honestly, it was like, a high school teacher was just like, if you guys are ever feeling overwhelmed or like, don't know what to do, just sleep. Like you probably are not getting enough sleep. And that has
Yeah.
always stuck with me. Like I love a 15-minute nap in the middle of the day. If I got to clear my head, I call it the brain shampoo. Like
Oh,
getting
that's a good word.
overwhelmed, just go reset. Um, Worst piece of advice was probably someone told me like never move to California when I was in college because there was some like you're gonna pay all your money in taxes and there was some like
Yeah.
political stuff in there. And I moved
Yeah.
there for a couple of years at the start of my career to work in consulting, and I left, came back to New York, but like the people I met out there, the stuff that was going on at the time, it was like 2012. I'm so glad I had a couple of years in the Bay Area and I did not listen to that person.
I'm totally with you on that. Like there is definitely, I always make fun of California, or not make fun of it, but it's like the really hot chick that you date. Like nature's beautiful, the business area is so fertile, but then there's also some tax stuff, some political stuff that kind
Yeah.
of comes with it. So you have all the craziness. It's on fire, natural disasters all the time. But I used to not be like this, but I am 100% in the camp of if you're talented and young, move to a big metropolis because
Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in Indianapolis, and like Indianapolis wasn't like this horrible city, but like for where I'm at today, it's 1,000% because I live in Austin. Like, definitely, could I be successful in Indianapolis? Sure, but not at the magnitude. I wouldn't connect with the same people. There's just a different vibe in the air when you're in these big. Like, I mean, NYC is probably the number one. Like, if you can make it in New York, you're going to be, yeah, especially in like Manhattan or something. Like, you're going to be. But there's just something about being in a place that has energy, economics, like everything there, especially if the economics are diversified, it's even better because like, for example,
Yeah.
you go to Houston or Dallas, it's pretty much Dallas's investment money, Houston's oil money. And like, if either of those markets start to feel it, like you can feel it in the city. Whereas Austin, we have a big public university. It's a state capital. So there's a bunch of government money. There's a bunch of tech here. There's all these different like pathways to prosperity where quite frankly, it's really hard to find in middle or average towns because there's just not the money to go around, just quite frankly. And so you just end up with these basic opportunities where, that's why you don't have these niche sellers in these tiny towns because there's nobody to buy the things. Whereas in New York, you have crazy little businesses that you wouldn't even think would be businesses and people are just printing money. So I didn't used to be a geographic maxi, but I think if you're young and ambitious, getting out of kind of flyover America and into one of the bigger cities should be like the number one goal. And the networking, like you're talking about, once you can get connected, then of course you can go, unplug, you find a significant other and kind of figure out what you want out of your life. But the opportunities afforded to you are so much more than kind of podunk BFE kind of places.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sleep on the Indy 500 because it is like one of the most fun things I've ever been to. My brother lived in Indy for a bit, but yeah, I mean, New York is just like you have people who are at the top of their game in everything. Like,
yes,
friends who are like the best lawyer, the best teacher, people who are like at a high level in the art game, and that's something I really like. Is there's just when I was in San Francisco, everyone was either like consulting for tech companies like me, doing finance for tech companies, or at tech companies. Just because it's a small city, and I feel like New York, a couple others on that list, you get like people just doing a really wide variety, and like you get inspired by these lateral thinking conversations.
Yep, I'm totally with you. That's exactly it. I think that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to start with you this time, Drew, and then you, Adam, so you can get a little time to think. What have been some of like your favorite resources to kind of expedite your career in terms of gaining mastery, understanding these kind of things? Is there any books, any resources, any frameworks that you really like that our listeners you think would be, very advantaged to consume?
Yeah. So one thing I always keep in mind is just like I know my strengths and how can I get even better at the strengths or like find areas to be like apply those more because I can take my mediocre skills and like get them from a B to a B plus, but I might as well find the places I'm A plus and like be 10x. For me, I think just like also knowing what kind of learning style you are. Like, are you someone who learns by podcast? Are you someone who learns from like reading a book? I'm very much a learn by doer, so I'd rather like download a game or do a simulation or like build out a model to try to understand how something works. Um, so I'm usually looking for like places to plug in or podcasts that go like super deep into, okay, here's how this thing works from bottom up. In terms of resources, for getting into e-commerce, like Andrew Darian's podcast is awesome.
Yeah, e-commerce Fuel.
Um,
He was on the pod.
yeah. He like, I just find they get to a level of detail that's super helpful. And then like Dave Reckock, who's one of our beta
That's
partners, like his Twitter threads and common thread collectives on like,
So
hey,
good.
here's how you should think about these metrics. And a lot of the stuff you guys put out too, for us is like relative noobs to e-commerce, has been incredibly helpful for like figuring out the economic equation.
Yeah, Dave's fantastic. I love David. Andrew's fantastic. Andrew's actually he's super outdoorsy, really interesting guy. E-commerce Fuel's fantastic. Him and Bill, that podcast is super sensational. Fantastic answers. And kind of before I go to you, Adam, going back to the bad piece of advice, I think that was one of the things, like the worst piece of advice is make your weaknesses into your strengths. I think it's the dumbest fucking thing on the planet. Like exactly what you said. Like, what are you great at? Go get even greater at it. Because not only that, I think that skill acquisition is a function of something you like and something you're already good at. And then you get more confidence and you get more excited because you gain that skill and you start this nice acquisition feedback loop. Whereas if you're a dancer, don't go learn Excel. Go become a dancer. You know what I mean? Like I always hated that advice. That and follow your passions. Those were the two things that like were nails on a chalkboard for me. It felt very like charlatan kind of. Anyways, I digress. But I did give you some time to think, Adam. So for you, what are kind of some resources, some things of that nature that you think people could be really helped out with if they consumed?
I mean, I think that and Drew touched on learning by doing, but I think that for me, a big part of my experience has been about learning by doing and just going and trying something. And if you have imposter syndrome and you think that, oh, someone else is going to be better at this than I am, and you just go and try and do it and you realize, oh, wow, actually, like a lot of these people are kind of making it up and they're kind of not as good as they think or they say they are. And so I can do this just as well and I can learn it just as well. And there have been times, and I think Drew and I both considered at some point in our careers going to graduate school and trying to, pile on the degrees. And then we were like, you know what, actually, like we could probably continue to work and get paid to learn and use your career and your job as an opportunity to make those learnings happen. And so I think that like, for me, I'm always surprised at what I can learn just on the job, and you just dive in and you figure it out as you go. And like this e-commerce thing, we didn't know anything about e-commerce 18 months ago. And now I feel like I don't want to call myself an expert necessarily. I'm still learning so much every day, but like, I knew way more than I did a year and a half ago. So don't be afraid to go just dive headfirst and do it, and you'll figure it out.
I love that, man. A degree from the streets. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I'd mention, not to pile on too much, but like since this is a three-way pod, like have people who you love working with. Like Adam is way smarter than me, and I can ask him dumb questions, and he loves explaining things, and then we'll like advance our own understanding and stick with people who you love working with. Like that makes trying shit, doing things so much less intimidating.
I couldn't agree more. And not only that, it's fun. Like for better or worse, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to spend more time doing this than usually with your significant other, than with your hobbies. I mean, what is a hobby when you're an entrepreneur, right? Like, what is this word? I've never even heard of it. Get it on my face. Like I'm working on my business. And so being around people that like you can connect with and mutually respect, but at the same time have, a healthy amount of candor where it's like, hey, Drew, that's a dumb idea. And like, it's not in a aggressive sense, but it's in it's a respectful disagreement. And I think that's really important, because if not, the worst thing you can do is get around people you hate or get around yes men. Those are the two ends of the spectrum for me, where it's like, that is not how you build a healthy business. And it just sucks. Like if you use the analogy of sports, right? Like you don't want to be in a locker room with the jerk, and usually it just takes one. just say it's like everybody's been to the party where the party's popping and that one awkward person comes and you're just like, this sucks. Like, and you got to make sure the vibe check stays right. I love that. Okay, Drew. Oh, go ahead.
It's a good thing that offices are not parties because I was the awkward person back in college. So I glad I'm not bringing this party to a screeching halt.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, Drew, we'll start with you and then we'll go to you, Adam. What's the nicest thing someone's done for you?
Oh, man. My grandparents like made it possible somewhat financially and somewhat like support to go to this high school in the city that I commuted in from the suburbs called Regis High School in New York, which just like, it was a all scholarship private school and it completely changed.
It's a fancy one, right?
My trajectory. It's a free fancy one. Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
I did debate there and it like got me into the city, and multiple of those guys will be in my wedding party this year. So the collection of people that made that a reality for me has been the nicest thing.
That's beautiful. Adam, what about you?
There's a lot that come to mind. I would say that most recently, last night, my wife took one for the team and was up with our 10-month-old. He has 104 fever last night. So she knew that I had a long day coming up. And so she took one for the team and was up with him all night, letting me sleep and get some shut eye so I wouldn't be cranky for this podcast.
Thank you, Miss Kitan. Fantastic. Yeah, shout out
Thank
Nikki.
you, Nikki.
Fantastic. You guys made it through the main segment. Let's jump into the value add. This is where the people bought the ticket. Okay, so you guys, again, kind of give me again the skinny, or I'll go to you first, Drew. Give me the skinny on intelligems, and then give me kind of the ideal person that will really benefit from this. Is there a certain run rate you look for? Is there a certain volume of transactions? So give me kind of what the implementation looks like, what people get out of it, like basically the elevator pitch, and then kind of some ideal clients.
Yeah. So like basically we help you figure out what you should price. Where's that sweet spot of like shipping rates, the price, the discounts. We do that through split testing. So we take your traffic in real time, give them different prices or discounts or shipping rates, and then help you track what happened to conversion rate, what happened to AOV, what's happening to my profitability, and which are best, what should we go test next. So there's a lot of depth behind that, but like we help you answer questions like what would happen if I was 10% more expensive or 10% cheaper? How much is free shipping buying me? We work with customers kind of like across the spectrum. You've got to be on Shopify. Our like floor is usually a run rate of $1 to $2 million. And there you need to have like one or two products you're selling up to, we have brands at 150 million. So I think like the common thread is most of those are like $50 to $200 AOVs, where you have a reasonably quick decision cycle. They are all clients who are like really analytical, are probably under some margin pressure right now because of supply chain, because of inflation, and have pricing on the mind and are looking for a better way to do it than like surveys, or this is a fun term I learned yesterday, the HIPPO, which stands for the highest paid person's opinion.
You guys put that in there. I love it.
We talked to a professor of dynamic pricing, Maxime Cohen, and that was a term from him. Like customers all over the board. The analytical piece is a big throughput, but if you're one time or subscription, we work with everything. Implementation, I mean, we're a Shopify app. There's an integration to make sure that you want to be really careful when you're running a price test. Like your price appears so many places on the site. There's the product page, collections, search bars, upsells, cross sells, checkout page. And, we're there with folks to make sure that everything is tagged and moving in coordination as part of a test. And then you press go and data starts popping out every half hour.
That's amazing. How long do people need to test to get kind of statistically significant or like some sort of read on a test?
Normally people test for 2 to 4 weeks, and oftentimes like if you are a very high volume
Sure.
store, you can make really small tweaks, and therefore what you're trying to detect is a really small change and a really small signal. And so that's going to only surface itself over a lot of data. But because you're such a high volume store, those small, 0.5% changes make huge differences. And so I think that most of our customers try and run tests over 1, 2, sometimes 3 or 4 weeks, and try and keep the cycles short and then like iterate into the next one. In terms of volume, like a rule of thumb that we often benchmark people against is that 200 or 300 orders per group will help you get to a statistically significant result.
Yep.
In most cases. So if you're wondering whether or not I have the volume to make this happen, if you can get 200 or 300 orders per group in a week or two on the products that we're testing the prices, then I think the answer is yes. If you can get, that being said, we have customers that have 5,000 orders per group, and it's because they're detecting really, really small changes between.
I love that. So Adam, this is for you, and then Drew, you can chime in if you'd like as well. But the biggest pushback I would see here is somebody says, so there's a concept in economics called price anchoring or anchoring, right? And so I've seen the price, or I might have even bought the product at X, Y, or Z price, and now you're trying to sell it to me for more. How do you guys handle that objection? Because I'm sure you hear it all the time, right?
Yeah, and there's a few related objections around like also fairness and also around like device switching or people seeing different prices during the test. I think that in general, around anchoring and the price changing, I think that people have to change prices all the time, and that's like just the nature of the macroeconomic environment we're in today. It's inflationary, and we have iOS 14 and my marketing spend is going up. So there are a lot of factors that are causing people to just have to change price. And so the changing price is like on the table. And so now it's a question of like, okay, let's test it. And so if the price is going to change, we might as well like be smart about it. And so that's like one element to it. The other is that like one of the elements that we bring to the table from a technology point of view is the ability to whitelist or blacklist certain traffic. So I want to exclude people that maybe were on the site recently, and we can do that using UTM parameters or using different referral sources. So if you're coming from an affiliate link that maybe that affiliate was advertising the price, or that people coming from that link are going to have a lot of context on the product and you don't necessarily want them to be in this test, we can exclude that traffic. We could also say, oh, you're running a prospecting campaign on Facebook and that has certain UTM params. So we can only whitelist and include people from that prospecting campaign. So presumably those will be new customers. And so very little price anchoring happens there. And then once you've landed on the site, we've tagged you in your browser, and we're able to show you the same consistent experience time and time again. So we can maintain relatively clean continuity throughout the test to get you that, true what people are willing to pay. And I think that it's just a lot of the concerns around, people, I'm going to get, I have a very diehard community. That's totally possible. And a lot of people do have diehard communities. The level of blowback when we make a change in the price or run a pricing test, I think consistently has shown people that this is not as much blowback as I expected.
Yeah, I like that. Anything to add, Drew?
Yeah, I think Adam put it well. Like in today's environment, it's not a choice to change prices or not change prices. Like you're going to have to change prices. Do you want to be smart about it and test and get more data, or do you want to like roll it out and cross your fingers?
Yeah.
And I think like people get too scared about price changes because people are going to be loud and there's going to be squeaky wheels, but the ROI is so much bigger than I think you realize. There's like some unintuitive math. I mean, it's worth having a couple unhappy customers if, we've had people, their first test found opportunity for like 30% margin improvement. I mean, that's insane. And not always from raising prices. Sometimes like elasticity says lowering is going to bump up your volume a ton. So I think there's going to be a bit of pushback when you raise your prices, and it's just, hey, was it like a good business decision from a profitability perspective?
I love that. Okay, so let me give you kind of a little bit of a hypothetical, Drew, and then Adam, you can also chime in as well. So if I'm coming to you, I have Raba's Happiness Pill store, and I have a subscription component, but maybe it's 20% of my business or below. And then I also have discounting, and then I also have a free shipping threshold. What do you test all of those, or like how do you structure that, or like how does that relationship work with you guys? Do you structure the tests, or like do the clients decide what tests to structure, or kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. It like depends on
Yep.
how someone wants to approach it, and does Robb's Happiness Pills have like a clear strategic agenda? Often it's really illustrative to be
Yep.
like, well, what are your
Love
goals?
that.
That's like the first question I'd ask. Surprising how much that simple question can like illuminate. Are you trying to
Yep.
grow the subscription business? Are you like getting crushed on margins and you
Yep.
need to grow them urgently? Are you introducing new products? So that's gonna like inform what direction we go. Eventually, all of
Got
that
it.
stuff will be on the roadmap. Where we often see people start is like
Yep.
shipping is an easy one. It's like not touching the core price. Everyone's costs have gone up. We've had people get like 50, 60, $80,000 of extra profit just by changing the shipping threshold. So let's dial that in. It's like a really lightweight integration. And then probably go to pricing. Like, and there, okay, do we want to dial in the subscription discount first? Are we just trying to figure out like, my hunch is your costs on these pills are super low. So it's really a willingness to pay game. Like, where are your competitors at? So let's take some big swings, test like 20% lower, 20% higher prices, and draw this curve of price elasticity. Run another one, like move up or down the curve depending on what we're seeing. As that gets dialed in, now let's drop into subscriptions. Like, what's that ideal subscribe and save discount where you're still
Yep.
getting high quality customers who like retain, have good LTV, but you're getting a good take rate on those initial subs. So like we're helping people with that. If people have hypotheses, go for it, put them in. But we've run like a couple thousand of these at this point, so often we're chatting about
I
that
love
roadmap.
that.
And when Drew says like there's opportunity to make money by changing your shipping threshold, like I don't think that people should hear this and think, oh, I should increase my shipping threshold. Like that's definitely not always the case. I think that one of the things that we've been really intrigued by is that for some people it's like, oh yeah, you offer $9.99 shipping and you can totally get away with charging $10 on every single order that you're shipping. And if you offer free shipping, you're not going to get enough of a meaningful bump in conversion to justify it. You should continue to charge $10 for shipping. We've also seen people who have very expensive products charging $10, $20, $30 for shipping, where by charging, like offering free shipping, I guess that
Yep.
can be a brand differentiator, and then conversion just bumps up meaningfully to a point where that was actually such an incremental boost in volume and total profit. So I don't think that it's like a one size fits all, as much as like we've tried to find these patterns and generate one size fits all. Like it's kind of interesting how everything is brand by brand.
That's beautiful. And I think it's just so ingrained in what I think is such a successful philosophy in terms of always what's the goal in mind, right? Start with the end in mind. What's the goal? And then also having the technicals behind it is fantastic. Adam, I'm going to give you a technical question because I realize we might be talking over some people. Can you just give explain your 5 kind of elasticity for people that don't? We keep throwing these big words out, and that we should probably bring more people along. Can you just give us for listeners that might not be privy to some of the economic terms or concepts, what elasticity is?
Sure. Yeah. So elasticity is how much is your conversion going to change when we change the price. So if I were to increase the price 10%, is my conversion rate going to drop 1%, 10%, or 30%? And so if I can increase the price by 10% and the conversion drops by 1%, that's pretty good. I'm in a good spot. I've been able to drive 10% higher price. I barely lose any sales, and then I'm probably making more revenue and certainly more profit. Where that math starts to get tricky is if I increase my price 10%, my conversion falls by 10%, that would be an elasticity of 1. And that would be where I'm making the same amount of revenue, maybe slightly higher margins, but there's a trade-off because it's going to be at lower volumes. And maybe I have economies of scale that I'm starting to think about, and efficiencies of marketing spend or things like that. On the flip side, it's if I decrease my price 10%, am I going to get a 10% bump in conversion, a 30% bump in conversion, or very little bump in conversion? And so that's where we start to see elasticity is how much are people willing to pay for your product, and relative, you can measure that as the amount of change in conversion relative to the amount of change in price. And so when those things are equal, it's 1. When the price change is way bigger than the conversion rate change, it's less than 1. And when a small change in price causes a big change in conversion, that's a very high elasticity of greater than 1.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's fantastic. Beautiful. Let's see what else we got here for you, boys.
For everyone who also didn't do well in microeconomics 201.
Are you?
And I guess like maybe like to drill one level deeper on that, because I think that there's like some interesting math here, and this is where I bring the like Saturday night party to a screeching halt. The intersection of elasticity and your margins is really important, and something that we learned pretty early on. If you have great margins, then what you're interested in is trying to move as much of your product as possible. And so therefore, if that elasticity is greater than 1, meaning I can reduce the price by a little bit and get an outsized increase in conversion, I'm going to be moving more product at very high margins. My margins aren't going to be very much affected by that small change in price. And so oftentimes for high margin, low elasticity products, the game here is let's lower the price and just drive volume. If you have very, very thin margins and potentially low, like that elasticity number is low, an increase in price, let's say you have 10% margins, even changing that price by 10%, that's doubling your margins. That's 100% increase in margins. And so there's actually then a lot of opportunity to increase the price and make a lot more money, even if conversion were to fall. And so depending on what your margins are, depending on what people are willing to pay and that elasticity, those are really tightly coupled and help inform how moving your price can affect your total profitability. And that's kind of what we're hoping to, that sounds complicated. Our like whole goal is to make that really simple and make it so that way you don't have to understand the nuances and math and Greek letters of the equations, and you can just run a test and see, oh, the profit is going up or the profit is going down, and leave the tough math for the experts.
For the record, Drew, you're invited to the party. Adam, somehow your invitation got lost. I don't know. No, just kidding. So Adam, one more thing to kind of just keep on the technical train. Do you guys see discounts and pricing as same but different? Because I love what you're thinking about in terms of margin, but what I go into is in terms of psychology of like, why don't I keep this price and then say, hey, why don't we test discounting, because I have all this margin power. I have this pricing power, right? I have this margin to play with. So I can drive volume through discounting versus actually, and then now you feel Drew's super happy because he got my 20% discount on my happiness pills versus actually lowering the core price. How do you guys kind of think through that?
Toss this one over to Drew.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers there. I'm definitely happy between these happy pills and the discount. So, sign me up. Discounting is a really good way to get directional price elasticity feedback. And I think you see it all the time. We might have Postmates and get personalized discounts. And there's a lot of room for personalization and discounting, legally, which is a big advantage. That said, it inspires different behavior. Some people, we all know them, the promo seekers. They see a discount, they see red, they're like, I am earning money by buying this, and I need to do it right now. So if we were to test $10 versus $8, and in a different test, $10 versus 10 with a 20% discount, those are going to show different results. And the discount is probably going to show stronger initial results, because you're just going to like, it changes the decision cycle. There's this sense of urgency. I got to buy now. The challenge, and like this is part about knowing your brand, there's no right way to do it, is how do those people behave over the longer term? You know, like, are you pulling forward future purchases with that discount? Are you getting promo seekers as a larger percentage of your audience, which you can work with that, but the way you merchandise, the way you communicate, the way you like, how often you run sales is going to be different. And so like they're related, but I think actually pretty different forms of testing. And both are insightful, because you're going to discount at some point, be it twice a year, 4 times a year, all the time. So you should know what's going to give you ROI, because you should be doing it for a return on investment. But you should also like understand how that list price impacts people's behavior.
Yeah, that's really eloquently put. You're absolutely right there. Now that I think about it, you can get a little bit of the Groupon effect, where you don't necessarily, these customers might either be lower LTV, or to your point, this is what I always talk about a lot of times with Black Friday, Cyber Monday, is like, you're not really generating more money. You're just pulling sales forward, where like you look at your November and it's crushing it. And then your December, like you sell 3 products. It's like, yeah, it's not because people suck. It's just that people bought 3 months worth of products at the discounted rate, and you have all these things. But I do like the angle of personalization. That's really interesting there, where if you can figure out a way to segment your market in certain ways, you can kind of play around with that. Cause I really recently got into sneakers, and GOAT and StockX have like just their most brilliant push notifications, where they'll be like, oh, and the sneaker you're looking at just dropped 5% or whatever, or you know what I mean? And they have these little psychological levers pulling on you. Like, there's, I don't know about you guys, but I think Amazon does a good job about this too. I have like this weird OCD of like not missing out on a good deal, and not even like I need the thing. It's just like I feel economically irresponsible not to buy this thing, because it's like such a good deal. And that's kind of aside from the core pricing test, where I see your point there. I think it's very well put.
My fiance makes fun of me all the time, because she's like, you literally work on pricing for a living, and you fall for the most basic like promotional stuff. And I'm like, but we don't know if this deal is coming back.
It works.
But yeah, I mean, like it works. There's lots of stuff, like it turns out 99 cents, like it works. We see that in our data versus $99 versus 100. That's one thing that like we have seen across brands, that those cliffs are real. And it's like, oh, I guess that's why people have been doing it for 100 years. Good to see. But it's really satisfying to see that come out on the data.
That's incredible. Okay, I'm going to start with you first, Adam, and then I'll go to you, Drew. How do you see the next 2 to 3 years unfolding in e-commerce?
I think that... Oh, Drew first, yeah.
I think like, I don't think the margin pressure is going to go away. I think we're seeing like freight costs come down, but like cost of goods sold. So I think there's been the iOS changes. So like the time of just like put money into Facebook, get good ROAS, like grow the top line. I think people have realized, oh, this is like, we got to look at the full unit economics bill for a given order. And that like pivot to margin, I think, is going to have some interesting implications of like, you know, how do we change pricing? How do we start to segment like profitable customers versus unprofitable customers, and looking order by order on, was this order profitable, instead of just looking at the end of the week or the end of the month. I think things like subscriptions and membership programs, like more innovation there, because it makes the economic model work a bit more. And like, you have to give customers a reason to want a subscription. Our like pet theory, which Adam, maybe you could touch on this, is dynamic pricing like is coming to e-commerce. It's just a kind of matter of when, not if. Like, I mean, it's taken over industry by industry. Like, was travel, now it's happening with tickets. You can go on StockX or eBay, and it's happening with clothes. If you go on Amazon, you know, there you have different sellers competing against each other, but you see dynamic pricing on Tide Pods throughout the day. And so, you know, I don't know exactly how that looks for the D2C world. It's being driven by your inventory levels and prices go up as you're running out? Is it being driven by like cycle times or personalized discounts? But there's like just a lot of extra margin to be gained there.
Before I go to you,
So those are my
before I go to you, Adam, that's really fascinating, Drew. I want to drill down into that real quick. So do you think that dynamic pricing is going to be a function of inventory? Do you think people are going to do like more drops or like kind of artificial scarcity into like, the first 10 will get sold at X price and then the next 10 and then the last, 5 or whatever are going to be, maybe 100% more than the first sale? Or like, how do you see the dynamic pricing? All right, let me ask you a different question. What do you think the dynamic pricing will be a function of?
Yeah, I think inventory is the easiest place to start. I think like the last couple of years, people have seen like it's really hard to predict my demand. It's surprising. It's too hard to predict what my suppliers are going to be able to get me when. And I would rather not be stocked out. That's like the worst situation to be stocked out of something people want. So like I think there's a customer rationalization, there's a merchant rationalization of I might as well sell this for higher if I've got it left. And I think my hunch is the first iterations we see of it are going to be, someone's going to go do it radically transparently and be like, hey, customers, this is our situation. You're going to notice prices changing on colors or sizes, on sheet sets versus pillowcases. And that's a reflection of like our costs. And I think one or two brands are going to step out there and like own it and probably have some great before and after data on their margins as well. So inventory is the ramp in. I think like based off buying patterns and maybe competitor prices is another spot we'll see. Like there's already people who change their Facebook or Google spend dynamically based off like the weather or based off leaning into spikes. So kind of applying that same mode of thinking, but just to your product prices.
Yeah.
I mean, and prices are kind of prices are dynamic today. You have seasonal discounts and sales around Memorial Day. And if you're selling flowers, like around Valentine's Day, maybe the prices of roses go way up because you can. And so I think that like there are things that we buy that are priced, that the prices change, whether it's a function of the discounts or whether it's a function of just the seasonality and what's around it. But yeah, I mean, if you're selling, a product and it turns out that Fridays you can charge more for it, I don't see why you wouldn't charge more for it on Fridays, just because people are willing to, the people who are in need for this thing on a Friday want to spend more money on it. I think that makes good business sense to me. I think that we're a few steps away from there, but I could see that happening.
Do you think, again, this will be applicable to all verticals? Because where I see it, because Drew just put a light off in my head, but where I really see this taking off is luxury. And almost in a weird way, luxury could be, so there's something called a Veblen good, and luxury is almost always in luxury verticals. And in a weird way, the last thing, like, so example, going back to that pricing as a function of inventory, and it ratchets up, the price ratchets up as the inventory goes down. If you buy the last one, even though it was, say, the first price was $100 and the last price is $1,000, that's almost in a weird way like a badge of honor or something in luxury, where I have the last, Drew happiness pill thing.
Yeah.
And so like in a weird way, it would almost, it's a best of both worlds because it's going to drive demand. So the people that have a lower price elasticity, they want to get a cheaper price, are going to buy earlier. And the people that want to pay more for the actual exclusivity of owning the Drew Marconi last, happiness pill will pay and kind of wait out in that. So that's I don't see how that applies across, utility verticals of like things that don't have like an exclusivity kind of luxury bent. But that's a really interesting point of how that would, that's very fascinating. What's your take there, Adam?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that definitely, and we see that with drops and exclusive items. It exists, and I think that will continue to exist. And I think that even with commodities, think of gas prices, right? Like gas prices change every day. And so like there's nothing luxury about buying gas, but that's dynamic. And I think that, you know, if people are buying toothpaste and the price of whatever ingredient in the toothpaste is changing, then why not be passing those prices along to your
Can I push
customers?
back a little bit on that?
Sure.
So gas has substitutes. So I can ride my bike. I can get an electric car. I can do these things where it's impossible for me to substitute a scarce good like Drew's happiness pills. That's the number one happiness pill, or that's the last purchase. I can't substitute that good. Whereas commodities, there's substitutes for that. So like that breaks that economic chain, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that what I'm not definitely not disagreeing with that point at all. I think that what I'm just saying is that it doesn't matter whether it's like a scarce, like one of a kind, or if it's a commodity. I think that dynamic pricing can play a role, and that like there's an opportunity here for like capturing value when people are willing to pay more or when the costs go up, and making your business very like dynamic and fast, as opposed to, oh, I've been charging $99 for these pans for the last 6 years, and like that's the price of these pans. Like the business has changed, and what people are willing to pay for those pans changes every day. And so like you're just leaving value on the table, whether like you're overpriced on some days and underpriced on another day. And that's true for luxury goods and true for commodities.
I love this.
I wonder if it's just like the amplitude of the dynamic pricing. I'm realizing I'm doing hand motions, which are incredibly unhelpful for a podcast. But like with luxury, with those non-replaceable, like you can see much bigger swings back and forth. I mean, you see that with like NFTs, love them or hate them. Like that's the reality of that market. People will pay a ton more for a Michael Jordan Top Shot with like 23 in the serial number because that's the only one. Versus, okay, gas, toothpaste, like we're talking 2 to 20% fluctuations instead of these like 100 to 1,000% fluctuations.
Yeah. Well, for me too, there's just so I might just start a Shopify store to F around with this, throw intelligems on there. Cause I'm thinking how interesting would it be if you made the price a function of traffic? And so you can kind of like modulate like weirdness. Again, this is only going to apply to like non-substitute goods where there's an incredible amount of scarcity where you can't substitute the thing you're buying. But it's so fascinating. You guys are absolutely right. Like, and so with your platform, you're going to be able to clear the market. Or, I mean, theoretically, you're going to be able to clear the market and find that equilibrium and at to what to price at. So I don't know. That's really fascinating. There's this.
And going back to your question about the future of e-commerce, I think that for me, one thing that has blown my mind in the last few months is that, I don't know, let's take a random example, like a t-shirt. Yep. You might like, your landed costs of this t-shirt might be like $3. So it means you spend $3 for someone to grow cotton, pick it, turn it into material, turn that into a t-shirt, like package that up, ship it across an ocean and put it in your warehouse. That costs $3. But then you turn around and spend $50 on Facebook to show like pictures of that t-shirt, like digital representations, and you're paying 10 times as much for Facebook to like show those photos to people, so you can get someone to buy that thing. And I just think that that is out of whack. And I think that that is like, that was surprising to me, learning a lot about e-commerce, and it's kind of like the way it is. But we have a merchant who decided that they were gonna do dry January and cut their Facebook spend and put all of that money back into like discounts and promotions and just lowering the price. And that drove way more volume for them than it would have on Facebook. Now, of course, there's an element of that discount behavior that Drew was talking about earlier, and when is the sale going to be gone and things like that. And maybe it's also people who know about that product. So I'm not just saying cut your Facebook spend and only like just lower your price by your CAC. That's not what I'm necessarily suggesting, but I just think that there's an imbalance here and it's ready for a change.
Yeah, I would 1,000% agree with that. And there's a certain aspect too. Again, it depends on the vertical you're in, because luxury notoriously won't discount. They'd rather eat the cost and just burn the goods, because they don't want for a lack of a better term, like poor people taking down the brand equity, right? Like they'd rather them just go throw the extra inventory in a dumpster than have people kind of take away the brand equity. But it's actually interesting you say that, Adam. I was a guy named Rob Frazier. He does Outweigh socks, formerly Endure, but does really, really cool socks. And I asked him about if he would do a collab, because Stance is probably like the biggest competitor, and Stance has all these incredible collaborations. He was like, no, our product's so good. We basically, what you were talking about, Adam, he was like, if I gave you $1 million to do a collab, he was like, I wouldn't do a collab. What I would do is give $1 million of free product away and find people to get more socks. I would have to say more feet in his socks, because to your point, like that would drive more volume for him than the analogous is the Facebook ads. The collab and the Facebook ads are kind of the analogy there. And so it's really fascinating that you guys have seen that as well. I do think you need to modulate it, in a proper way, but I do see that a lot. And I think ultimately it's just a function of arbitrage, where Facebook ads now are properly priced, where in my opinion before, in the last 2 years, they were not only underpriced, but you also had the tailwind of incredible targeting. So you have an underpriced asset that you can get in front of the right people for really, really cheaply. You can almost think of it like a shopping mall. You're bringing in the best people, and it costs them nothing, basically. And so now Facebook ads are properly priced. And so you have to be a lot more stringent and efficient in terms of how you deploy that paid capital. And you need to know the price to charge. That's why you should use intelligems.
Yeah. Yeah, Facebook wants to come use intelligems, like knock on our door.
Let's go.
We'll make something work.
Mark, if you're out there. Or Meta, sorry. Excuse me. Meta. Guys, you made it to the rapid fire. You ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect. We're going to go Drew, Adam. So we'll just keep that. Discounting, overrated or underrated? Drew, you start.
Overrated, because people don't measure what happened.
Love it. Adam?
Underrated, because take your money off of Facebook and do more discounts.
Ooh. Free shipping thresholds, Drew. Overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Ooh. Adam?
Also underrated.
Oh, I like it, boys. Talking to customers, overrated or underrated? Drew?
I don't think it's possible to overrate talking to customers. So inherently underrated.
Absolutely. Our customers are merchants are my favorite part of what we do.
I love it. Profits, overrated, underrated?
I'll give you a nice quote. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity.
Oh, that's it, my man.
I stole that from Mike Jack.
My man. Adam?
Yeah, underrated. I feel like people are very concerned with their top line numbers and not nearly enough concerned about their bottom line.
2 peas in the pod, or 3 peas in the pod, I guess we are. Okay, Drew, New York, overrated, underrated?
Underrated.
Ooh. Adam?
Rated. Like, I used to live there. I love New York. It's rated. Like, it's cool, but like, Denver's cool too.
Perfect. Well,
I don't rated.
I'm not bitter.
Well, we're gonna flip the script now. Drew, Denver, overrated, underrated?
I would say still underrated.
Yeah.
I mean, you like drive and you see the mountains. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then Adam?
Yeah.
Underrated as well?
Underrated. It's a good spot. Come on out.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love the little triangle out there. It's great. Well, you got Colorado Springs, Boulder, Denver. That whole area it's really cool. It's beautiful out there. Garden of the Gods, fantastic. Tons of outdoor stuff. I'm actually a big fan. Downtown's really cool. You got a baseball stadium right there. It's fantastic. Basketball team, everything. All right, Drew, Shopify, overrated or underrated?
Basketball team swiped out. I would say rated.
Yeah,
like
properly rated.
Great product. You run into weird walls.
Yep.
In terms of flexibility.
Fair play. Haircut too on the stock lately. Jesus, brutal. I mean, everybody's been getting cut, but man, I think it's 68, 69% down. Brutalized.
Damn.
I would say underrated. Like, I haven't really used a lot of the other platforms out there, but I get the sense that like, as for all of Shopify's shortcomings, it is by far the best.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, Drew, NFTs, overrated or underrated?
Overrated.
Ooh, hot takes. What about you, Drew? Or Adam?
I'm going underrated.
Oh!
Depends on the NFT. I'm not buying
That's true.
those.
No crypto punks?
Yeah,
No apes? Nothing?
no punks for me. No apes.
You want to talk about advice I should have listened to? Like November 2020, my buddy was like, "Oh, during COVID, I've been getting into this like cool beta digital card thing," and then 6 months later, he was in the Wall Street Journal for being one of the whales of Top Shot.
Just
and I was like,
printed
damn, I should
money.
have asked him more questions.
Just printed
Yeah.
money. Yeah, I definitely missed that. I missed the NFT rage and I missed the BTC, and the crypto rage is all, but it is what it is. Drew, TikTok, overrated or underrated?
I mean, underrated, I guess. I can't download it because I know I'm going to get addicted to it.
Smart man. Smart man. What about you, Adam?
I'm going overrated.
Ooh.
This also coming from a guy who like I've had moments where I'm about to crack, but like I'm also not on Twitter, and I know like that is probably an unpopular
You gotta
stance
get on the
over
Bird app. It's
on this podcast.
Oh, it's the number. You want to talk about price elasticity? It'll absolutely increase your margins. Whatever economic analogy you want to use, it's fun too, man. The DTC Twitter community is actually really, really cool. I would highly
I
recommend.
know I have some FOMO.
It's super fun. It's, if any social network out there, it's definitely the most. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what Elon does with it, but I've gotten a ton of value from it. Okay, Drew, favorite meal and why?
Every meal. I like food's the most consistent joy in life, in my opinion. Just every meal is an opportunity to like enjoy something. Lunch, I guess if I had to pick one.
No. I'm not talking about like
structure for the
breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm talking about like the literal cuisine, like the pizza or
pizza.
sushi or something. Pizza.
Drew and I were gonna definitely have the same one.
Period.
Yeah.
Any particular?
Drew got me into sourdough.
Oh. Sourdough pizza?
And we
Yeah,
both
Adam
have
throws down a mean
pizza ovens.
Oh wow. You can get some good
Actually,
bagels are like a second number two.
I will say that when purchasing my pizza oven, which was from a Shopify store, I was worried that they were going to run out of the sale. There was a scarcity in my mind, but then I was able to do the hack on Shopify and see their inventory and saw that they had thousands in their inventory. So I was like, okay, I can like sit on this decision for a few days longer.
Amazing. A pizza oven. That's fantastic. Is it awesome? Do you like it?
Totally worth it.
What's plug it? What's the
It's the Uni.
The Uni? Let's go, Uni.
OONI. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Okay, Drew.
The Coda.
Drew, you first, and then you, Adam. Favorite podcast?
This is embarrassing, but My Dad Wrote a Porno is like
That's a podcast
three
name?
British people.
It's amazing.
Three British people. The dude's dad wrote an erotic novel, and it's the son. He sent it to his son for some reason, and it's him and his two friends reading page by page this amazingly, incredibly, horribly written piece, and then just like laughing about it. And it is the end of a long day, like so funny. And they do live shows now. It's
That is hilarious.
it's very British humor.
Oh my God. I don't know how you top that, Adam, but what's your favorite podcast?
Oh, mine is super boring. I love Marketplace, Kai Rizdal.
Yep.
It's an NPR podcast, just like 30 minutes economic news of the day. And my Twitter FOMO is because I want to at Kai Rizdal, and I like am hesitant to make a Twitter just so I can at Kai Rizdal, but like that's going to be the breaking point for me.
Got to get on there, bro. You got to get on there. Drew, favorite place to travel
What's
to?
yours besides the Triple Whale podcast?
My First Million's actually kind of up there. There's something called Conversations with Tyler. He's an economics professor that does some pretty interesting talks on there. Those are kind of the big ones. There was something called A Simcoe. It was Horace Dediu. It's now defunct. What else I listened to? There's a cool one called Containers. It was actually a series, but it was really interesting. You actually might like it if you're into the supply chain. Basically, the whole history of how our supply chain is so efficient because of the I forget how long it's like the 8x10, the standard shipping container.
Yeah.
And that basically goes into literally the whole kind of kit and caboodle about that. It's actually really, I
that's
think
cool.
it's like 8 or 10 podcasts about the whole history of that. It's pretty good. But I would probably say the one I listen to the most is probably Conversations with Tyler, where I don't miss that episode. He's a really fantastic interviewer and a really interesting, has a lot of interesting takes, a lot of interesting people on there. I did Recode Decode for a little while, Prof G show for a little while, but for the most part, Conversation with Tyler, can't mess with that one. Really good. Hardcore History is a really good one if you're into history as well. He doesn't publish as much as he used to, but Dan Carlin's a G. He's really interesting. Okay, 2 more questions. Drew, favorite place travel to and why?
Japan or Italy.
Interesting. Yeah.
I worked in Japan for like a few months early in my career.
Tokyo
Tokyo, and just every place you eat has like the best meal you've ever had. And I'm a big public transit fan. Being from New York, it's like amazing, and just the scale of the city, it just keeps going, and you can get off at any subway stop and find something beautiful or like amazing. And so there's also something nice. It's extremely foreign, it's not as easy as a lot of places in the world to get around with just English, and I kind of like that challenge.
I love it. What about you, Adam?
I would say Tel Aviv or Israel. I live there, so I'm definitely biased, but like I think if you haven't been, you've got the beach, you've got great food, great culture, nightlife. There's tons of history. You go to Jerusalem for anyone and anything. Like you've got some of the most ancient historic landmarks there, and then you've got some wineries up in the north. I think that like a 2-week trip in Israel is a perfect, like balanced, complete trip.
Yeah, I was actually we have a hub in Jerusalem, and I was just out there. I didn't get to go to Tel Aviv. Really cool city, but I'll tell you what, man, those are some brutal customs. They do not play with customs. That is,
did you get put in the?
Oh, for sure, because I'm
for sure,
I'm half Arab, so like, 100%. And I was there with AJ and Max, who are like proper Israeli. They wear a yarmulke, everything, like speak Hebrew. It was very interesting experience. Once you're in, it's a beautiful country, but it was a very unique experience through customs for sure.
I had Pakistan in my passport, and I got sat in a room for a while just to hang out with myself.
Yeah, not the path. Well, ironically enough too, so I had the Arab thing going against me, and then we had just came from a conference in Dubai. So that wasn't great either. So it was, very, very unique. Okay, last question for you, Drew, and then Adam, you'll get some time to think on it. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, fictional or non-fictional, who are they? So you're at a dinner table, you're sitting at the head, you get to invite 3 people. Who is getting an invite to dinner?
Ooh, man. Wow. I mean, I'm going to say I was into him before the play, but Alexander Hamilton, I think just like seems like a volatile and a good way dude that would bring a wild card factor and be really smart. I think like I want to get someone from the sports world. Like I am not. I've always rooted against him, but I find LeBron to just be like really impressive from like he like runs a good chunk of the NBA's agent business, which is crazy. Like people don't talk about that enough. I don't know how he and Hamilton would get along, but like I think just if he were up front on like the state of the game and what he sees behind the scenes, and like there's some crazy like the Ben Simmons situation this year, like how are they going to manage that from like a labor and business perspective? Anyway, third, it's a tough one. I'm going to throw another wild card in there, extremely random, but like I've listened to some interviews with her and she's random in a great way. Like Tilda Swinton is someone who I want to.
I don't know who that is.
Understand better. She's an actress. She was like in Michael Clayton. She won an Oscar for that. She was like in the Doctor Strange movies. She's very distinctive looking. You'd probably recognize her. I think she's Northern Irish. I could be wrong there. but like super well educated, has done a bunch of stage acting, a bunch of movie acting, like I think has like a very study of history background. So I'm just going for the most random crew possible. And
House
see what
culture.
happens.
That's a fun dinner, Drew. Okay, Adam, you're up.
Tough one. I would say maybe Robert Oppenheimer.
Yep.
And I think Elon Musk's got to be there. Like, just got to.
Two big brains.
And oh man, for the third one,
You could throw in
maybe
Thomas
like
Edison.
no, I was gonna go something a little bit like I gotta have a little bit of variety here. I was gonna do like Claude Monet, like someone like really artistic, something like out there and different.
Yeah, you can't have Death Destroyer of Worlds, crazy Elon Musk with SpaceX, Tesla, now Twitter, and then now you have a crazy artist. These are some fun picks, guys. These are definitely some of the better picks we've had on the pod. Well done, well done. Okay, who wants to sign off for you two, Drew or Adam? Or we'll start with you, Drew. Tell people where to follow you. How can they get more involved with intelligems? And then we'll go to Adam.
So you can find intelligems at intelligems.io, INTELLIGEMS. You can find us on the App Store. On the website, you can like click request access. That'll send to me, so we can jump on the phone if you want to talk more about like how to get going. I'm on Twitter at ACMarc, MARC. And we got some blog posts up. So reach out. We love talking about this stuff.
Awesome. Adam?
And I'm Adam at intelligems.io, as we discussed, not on Twitter. And you can find us on our website. So I'm not trying to be elusive. Just email me directly.
See, he's playing the economics.
Email me and I'll make Adam get on the call.
The scarcity. We got to get Adam on Twitter by the end of the year. That's the goal. We'll get Adam on the Twitters. I'm telling you, you'd have some fun economic exchanges on there. Like there's some big brains on Twitter. It's in a weird way, the brevity actually drives more coherent kind of thinking. There's definitely some shit posting, but for sure, like when you get into the like exchanges with really bright people, the brevity is actually a feature, not a bug. It's fantastic. Drew, Adam, thank you so much. You guys go sign up at intelligems.io. Go get you some pricing testing, some discounts, some free shipping thresholds. If you want to go get more involved with Triple Whale, it's trytriplewhale.com. We're also on the Bird app at Triple Whale. And then we have a fantastic newsletter that goes out every Tuesday, Thursday called Whale Mail. You can subscribe right on our Twitter profile at Triple Whale. Guys, this was fantastic. I was a little nervous having a little 2-on-1, but this was fun. This worked out perfect.
Yeah, I think we figured it out as we went.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, cool,
Thanks,
folks.
Man.
You guys, thanks, Drew. Adam, you're the best.